Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 6 of playing. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 6 of playing The Roottrees Are Dead. We are now in the post game, which is Roottreemania, and we are digging into the torrid past of affairs in various members of the Roottree family, so that we can find out who other heirs are that are deserving of receiving a portion of the inheritance, because they are, in fact, Roottrees. So last time I started placing down who I thought some of the prospective adulterers in the family might have been, for lack of another word, including apparently infamous Guy Hudson, who has, if I've placed him correctly, the most number of affairs. We were told to focus primarily on men in positions of power, but I don't think that excludes potential curveballs in there. So far, I have Guy. I think Miracle might be in there because protesting so much, trying to keep someone out of the tree. We were told that, what's his name? Elias, the founder, had an affair. So he's on there, and I think there's one more, at least one more, that I have not placed. That's somebody who's had an affair recently. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, it could very well, I don't know, we'll see. It's taking a while to load. There it goes. Okay. Complain about something and then it works. Okay. We have a lot of different options for us. Here we are. Okay, so we have 2 people in the tree that we have. Oh, no, wait, that's an affair partner. So this is the one that I haven't named. And, you know, I started thinking about it, and I'm wondering if it could be Carl. Just putting that out there. Right now, we know pretty much for sure that this is David Fellows, who is the only one that is a noteworthy person who is on here. But we're going to try to fill out more. Let's take a look at our evidence. We have the Picotee missing pages. That's right. We were looking at this article by Cicely Sanchez. This was about Guy Hudson. So she has some pictures, but they've not been published in here. And we found some stuff about the bass, but nothing else. This utensil that will help you lose 50 pounds. Wow. Okay. So that's one thing we have. We also have these reminders. Okay, Butler County, Elias, Carl, and Raina. You know, let's look into Raina. I spelled her name wrong. Sorry about that. Okay. Was founded in, okay. Okay, there is an older version of this. The website you used to initially place Raina and Riley is still up, though instead of the cherry pink background with purple text, it's now more traditional black text on a white background. The young webmaster has turned the site into a memorial for the sisters and their father. It seems like she did end up getting her ears pierced like Rose after all. Regardless, there's no relevant information, just a picture of the girls with a sad MIDI piano playing in the background. From other higher profile sites, you find that a charity has been set up in the group girl's name. So let's go ahead and look that up. So the Roottree Sisters Fashion Scholarship. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and make a new page. I'll title this Roottrees Sisters. I don't know if we're going to find much about them. We'll see. Okay, so the Root website has a small memorial section to the deceased members of the family, but it contains no new information. The most recent catalog had an entirely black cover with no text on it. On the leadership page, you learn that Root is currently managed by a designer who is apparently Brenda White's second in command. You don't recognize her name and she seems unrelated. There's also a scholarship page. On it, you find information about the Roottrees Sisters Fashion Scholarship. It's awarded to 3 underprivileged high school girls each year who wish to pursue a career in fashion. It also gives them an opportunity to show off their designs on a professional models on a real runway. According to the site, the fund was created directly from shares that would have been contributed to the inheritance of the Roottrees sisters if they were still alive. Like other aspects of the Clanstead Trust, it is managed by Ruby Legal Enterprises. Okay. Ruby Legal Enterprises, we read in a couple of these other things. Let's see. Did I look up foreign gospel? I don't remember. Let's go ahead and try that. Portrait of a Changed Man was the book. Spelling is so bad. Okay, so this is an out of print. Okay, I did look these up earlier. I do remember that. I think we looked into most of this stuff. Here's the 6 pieces. Indecisionitis. Why did I highlight this? The confusing movie was referenced in pop culture to a late night sketch. Okay. Indecisionitis. A disease coined by a popular sketch show as part of a fake pharmaceutical advertisement for Jit Together. While the segment isn't fully about the Roottrees Candy Company, it was released in the weeks after their bizarre response to the release of 6 Pieces by Sam Madsen. In the sketch, a woman ordered a number 5 at a drive-thru speaker. Then after pulling forward, she changed her mind at the window, asking to switch it to a number 3. This caused a lengthy backup and annoyance amongst the restaurant's employees and other patrons. After she pulled away, as the employees began helping other customers, the same woman then barged into the restaurant and passed the current line, loudly complaining that she didn't receive her number 5. After this, the sketch transitioned from the restaurant scene into a pharmaceutical commercial. A doctor claims that the woman was suffering from indecisionitis, a disease that caused extreme confusion and irritability, has recently been found to severely hinder the leaders of large corporations, but could also spread to humans. The doctor then recommends Jit Together, a fake pharmaceutical drug. Multiple testimonials use variations of the catchphrase, "When I can't make tough decisions, I've got to get my jit together." The final testimonial includes a bald man in silhouette with a voice changer saying, "I'm not comfortable sharing who I am, but I am comfortable saying that before I took over my family's candy company, I really should have gotten my jit together." That's so stupid. Okay, that just leads to the same article. Okay. What else do we have? Oh, let me go back to my notes. Roottreemania, I think I looked into. A restaurant called Antonelli's. There are a large number of Antonelli's restaurants, not because it's a chain, just because it seems to be a common name for Italian restaurants. Okay, let's try periodicals. Butler County Times. Antonelli's is an Italian restaurant, and it has been in the Butler County Times twice. The most recent time was when it closed in 1992. Rochelle Zimmer sold the land the building was on, and at the time of the article, she was unsure if the restaurant would move to a new location if she would retire. Many years before that, there's a puff piece about from Valentine's Day 1978 that asked recently married residents of Butler County how they met. Okay, let's highlight this. Christine Garland responded. Let's highlight her name. She and her husband, Steve, who was a chef at Antonelli's, met years ago when she delivered produce from her mother's farm. Steve used to work extra hours just to be there during her deliveries. Although they grew apart when the restaurant switched suppliers, they reconnected by chance and eloped at the end of last year. Now she has a bun in the oven. Is it his? And they're both working as much as they can. She's a secretary, but went back to delivering produce on the weekends, trying to save up money to move to Boston and open their new restaurant. Okay, so her husband, Steve, is a chef, and they reconnected by chance and eloped. She's a secretary, but went back to delivering on the weekends. Okay, do we have anyone? This is the 70s. It could be someone in here. This would have been way too recent for it to have been him, but it could have been one of them. So we have this one. Well, not this one, because this one's not married. Actually, none of the other ones are married. So it's probably her. Christine. And secretary. And we have Stephen Garland. So one of these kids might be a Roottrees, the other one might not. Oh, this one. That's how they're linking them. Oh, interesting. Okay, let's look up Stephen Garland then. Back to spider search. Nothing relevant. Nothing relevant. Okay. What if I just look up Garland? Okay. Steve Garland is mentioned in a couple of articles. The first was an article about how he met his wife, Christine. The second is from months later in September of 1978, listing for his weekend cooking classes, gourmet for the groovy. This could probably be better organized, because these are all just in... I think what I should have is Guy Hudson. Is there an option for just moving? Oh, I wish there was. Okay, what if I do this? Will it take... it's not taking the hyperlink. Okay. I'm gonna move over here now. I'll just try to be more judicious about switching windows. The blurb mentions that he's been giving lessons from his home kitchen for the last month so that he could keep an eye on his son. The third was from 1991 and is titled Local Author Sued by Former Butler County Residents. It seems that a local author by the name of Mark Zimmer was sued by Garland after Garland saw Zimmer promoting his book Kitchen Tales on television. His recipe book was partially plagiarized from the recipes that Steve Garland would give his students during his cooking lessons before he moved. The article mentions that although the recipes are hard to copyright, Garland accompanied each recipe with a short fiction about how he learned it. These usually doubled as a way to remember certain ingredients. Garland's bean salad, for example, involved making a trade with a gnome for some magic beans. Apparently, these stories were found word for word in Zimmer's cookbook, in addition to additional stories that found the same format. Okay, let's also try looking up Christine Garland. Okay, this takes us to this page. Owner Rochelle Zimmer. Let's try looking up Rochelle Zimmer. Rochelle and her husband Mark have a few mentions in the Butler County. Both are local business owners. They owned Antonelli's. Mark owned a local bookstore called Bookmarks. Both closed in 1992. Mark was also mentioned once in Butler County Times when he... Oh. Interesting. I'm just going to highlight this whole thing in here. For some reason, I did not remember that. So they have a son from their marriage, but we don't know who was born at which time. Bookmarks appeared in the Butler Times many times, form of advertisements. None of them seem relevant, though Lauren Roottrees did do a book signing in 1970. Wow. Okay. Mark. Is it Zimmer? Here we go. Yeah, Zimmer. Okay. Kitchen Tales was a story-based recipe book credited to Mark Zimmer that had some success after it was featured on a morning talk show. The book released before the internet was widespread, so mentions are rare. One book collector states that the publishers were unprepared for the demand and that there was no second printing, so it's unusual to find a copy in the wild. You find an alternative medicine website which focuses on cooking with natural ingredients. It mentions that one of Kitchen Tales' recipes used salt water. The owner of the site has included a scan of that recipe, which was added to your evidence. She says, if you switch out the salt water in the recipe for a mix of 2/3 spring water and 1/3 filtered seawater, it tastes great. Okay, so why do we have this recipe? Oh, because maybe he says something in it. Oh God, I wish this was closer. Let me read this first. Kitchen Tales is a book that combines recipes and stories. It had mild popularity but seemed to disappear from online marketplaces in 1992. You found a scan of one story on a website. It demonstrates how to bake the plated loaf. For years, two bakers, Flora and Yates, flirted. They grew their friendship, compared recipes, and combined knowledge. She loved his salt and pepper beard. He adored her rosemary cheeks. They thought sweetly about one another, but he was one day whisked away, conscripted to bake the army's bread. By the oil of the lamp, Flora's tears began to salt her bread. The recipe asked the reader to combine flour, yeast, sugar, olive oil, and rosemary, combine with the salt and water together, and add to the mixture and whisk until the dough begins to form. It was 10 to 12 years later that they met again, seemingly by fate. Flora's unique dough had earned her a position as the king's personal baker. Yates had found success as well. He baked for the kingdom's 45 diplomats. One day, they returned from the Dutch Isles with a gift, 450 unbaked loaves, and were sent to the palace bakery to teach a method that required no kneading. Allow the dough to proof for 10 to 12 hours, then spread it out and let it sit for 45 minutes on a floured baking sheet with no kneading. Next, prepare a Dutch oven preheated to 450 degrees. Upon seeing Yates, Flora was both delighted and distraught. She felt as if she was torn in two. She had not been made aware of the gift and had already prepared buns for the palace ovens. She wished to greet Yates warmly, but was struck by fears that he'd be unable to bake with her, that she'd face retribution for being unprepared. She cried to Yates, adding more salt to her dough. Cut the dough into equal pieces and lightly sprinkle salt across the top of only one of them. Yates eased her pain. He insisted she had no obligation to prepare for a return, she thought impossible, for she shared her fear of retribution. He shared her fear of retribution. He knew if they did not solve her predicament, they'd miss their final chance to bake together. In the end, instead of wallowing in the present, they worked together to shape the future. They twisted and entwined their doughs and baked them as one. Thus was born the plated loaf. Word quickly spread of this new delight. The king's decree on royal parchment was that it would be considered a delicacy. Roll and twist the pieces to entwine them, then take the twist and wrap around the inside of the Dutch oven atop parchment from outside inward to make a spiral. Bankrolled by the king, Flora and Yates spent their days baking together. They traveled for 45 years and settled down for 15 more. Their souls were golden with no regrets. Lastly, bake for 45 minutes, remove lid, and observe until crust is golden brown, which could take up to 15 minutes. Okay, let's try looking up. Okay. So I think they do have, we can't, there is no like unknown male name anymore. It's just unknown. Okay. So I think from this, basically, I mean, he was married already and then slept with her. She got pregnant, met up with him again, and told him of, that she was pregnant. But he was like, that's okay. And he paid them off so that, they were going to raise his kid, but nobody would know about the scandal. So that's what I'm guessing happened. And then they probably have one kid who is theirs, like the two of them. But obviously they both grew up together. And at least one of them is a son. I don't know that I can write anything down, though. Maybe let's just try looking up the plated loaf. No. What happens if I search for the book title? Kitchen Tales. Out of print, re-released as Garnishing the Truth. The entire description of this book, according to the library system, is a recipe book that contains stories. Huh. Could the author publish under a different name than the one that you searched? Is it Stephen Garland? Okay. Garnishing the Truth is a cookbook credited to Garland and Zimmer. It was released in 1994. It was actually quite successful after the duo appeared to promote it on a daytime talk show. There have been multiple printings since. According to a book review, the recipes are accompanied by stories that help the reader remember the ingredients. The reviewer says that it seems perfect for learning to cook with the entire family. Okay, so how do I search that? So we have Stephen Garland and Mark Zimmer. Is it just Garland and Zimmer? Okay. The introduction of the book is a series of acknowledgments from Steve. The first is, Christine, thank you for everything. Your support means the world to me. You are the apple of my pie. The second is to James and Robert. You're becoming amazing men and are incredible chefs. I guess I'm a good teacher. Okay, so that has to be the names of his kids. So, what was the order? James and Robert. I think people kind of naturally named their kids in order. And Robert. This is amazing men and incredible chefs. So maybe they also went on to be chefs? I don't know. I'll just put that for now. You proved my storytelling approach to recipes could be popular. Without you, this book couldn't exist. There is also a foreword by Mark Zimmer. I first met Steve in 1978 when he taught a cooking class. The next time I saw him was over a decade later, when he was suing me for stealing his recipes. Yes, really. So you might wonder what I'm doing in this introduction. Well, it turns out that Steve and I had more in common than we thought. Instead of settling in court, we settled it at McCarran's Brew House over a game of darts. They said they'd give us the first drink of the night free for an entire year for mentioning them. By the end of the game, he and I agreed we'd both rather make a ton of money together than spend a ton of money on lawyers. It's pretty rare to meet your best friend so late in life, but when I decided to retire, I moved to Boston just so we could hang out. So if you're browsing the book in a bookstore, please buy our book. We need more money for when the free beer runs out, and the bookstore could probably use the sale. Okay, let's search this in Butler County Times. Nothing there. McCarran's Brew House is a pub in Boston, and they have a website apparently. The bar has been around for a long time. On the site, there's a list of famous people who have had a drink there, including former President of the United States, not of the Roottrees Company, Kennedy. There's also a few listings of television shows and books that have mentioned McCarran's, as well as how they came up. One of them is Garnishing the Truth, which the site has this to say about. Local and regular Stevie G wrote a book about food. We prefer cocktails, but he gave us a shout out, and we ain't gonna say no to free press. So go grab a bite at his kids' joint, Friday, and then swing by to meet him for a drink. Friday is a popular restaurant in Boston. They don't have a website, but many locals seem to mention them in various places. One more in-depth review explains that it's not a full restaurant, just a front door and a very small interior with a window. Unusually, the restaurant only serves vegetables, but a lot of reviews say that in spite of that, it's delicious. You also find a short story about it listed on a website called My Boston Homepage. Whoever runs the page seems to just link to random sites related to Boston, tell personal anecdotes related to Boston, and give their relatively short opinions on things in Boston. It's very unorganized. It has this to say about fried eye. Wicked overrated. I saw it in Chef's Signature, so I went and there was a huge line, and they didn't have a single meat dish. What's even the point? Okay. All right. I think My Boston Homepage. I think Chef's Signature is probably a periodical, but wicked, awful to wicked. Antique store called Bees Things. Apparently the owner, Beatrice, is not very friendly. I just think that's funny, so I'm going to save it. The most recent establishment to receive a wicked is a comic book store in Cambridge called The Million Year Picnic. As you can tell, nothing besides fried eye seems to be connected to your search in any way, but that's not going to stop me from looking them up. The owner's name is Beatrice, and the store's name appears to be a somewhat awkward attempt at a bee stings pun. This is supported by what can only be described as a swarm of bee-related imagery and puns on their website. Their logo has a pastel yellow and black striped theme with clip art insects all over it. It mentions that all of Boston is buzzing for bees. There's even a listing for a vintage armoire that mentions it has plenty of room for all your yellow jackets in it. And the bottom it states, "Fly on down, honey, and make a deal with Beale." Nothing here appears to be relevant to your search. That's funny. Okay, and then the Million Year Picnic. A comic book store in Cambridge. It's one of the oldest comic book stores in the United States, founded in 1974, and named after a short story by Ray Bradbury. If you decide to visit the Million Year Picnic for the first time after playing this game, please tell the owner, Tony, that you heard about the store from the video game The Roottrees Are Dead by Jeremy Johnston. Fair warning, he has no idea that I did this and will probably be somewhat confused if you're the first person to tell him. That's a funny little Easter egg. Okay, let's look up the one that's probably actually relevant, which is Chef's Signature. Okay, periodical. So we're going to look through Chef's Signature for Stephen Garland, or Stevie G. Steve Garland. Okay. What about his kids? James Garland and Robert Garland. There we go. Chef's Signature covered fried eye less than a year ago, right around the time you were doing your initial investigation. Each article in Chef Signature tends to focus on a restaurant, and like the magazine name implies, each restaurant lists the one main dish that the head chef is known for. Friday's signature is the samosa cone. The cover and main article has been added to your evidence. Okay, and let's check out Robert Garland. Okay, so I guess they're both going to be in this article. Can a vegetarian diet be trendy? Sitting down with the Garlands, the new boys in Boston. Chef Signature, a nationally published magazine targeted toward fans of unusual restaurants, featured James and Robert Garland on the cover of their November 1998 issue. According to the article, the two brothers own a small walk-up window in Boston called Friday, a play on the tie-dye shirts that the servers wear, that exclusively serves vegetarian dishes. Most of the offerings are heavily inspired by the powerful spices found in Thai and Indian food. Their signature dish is the samosa cone, which from a distance somewhat resembles a traditional ice cream, complete with waffle pattern. Instead, it contains fried potatoes, pureed peas, carrots, and a special ginger-based sauce. Robert, who is 3 years younger than James, jokes that although the age difference has left him delegated to wear the sous chef jacket his whole life, he doesn't mind. As a result, James answers most of the interviewer's questions. James credits his love for food and his culinary skills to their upbringing. Most kids hate vegetables growing up, but they don't have parents like we did. My father was a chef, and my mother grew up on a farm that supplied his restaurant. That's how they met. I don't have any memories from the farm or anything like that since we moved before I could even talk, but they told me stories. My dad's a great storyteller. He even wrote a book that partially helped fund Friday. When we moved, they were looking to open their own restaurant together. Unfortunately, they never got it off the ground. His line cook gig ended up being less temporary than he hoped, and she had to go back to work as secretary even after Robert was born. Before we were old enough to go to school, we spent our days with my aunt. She had to go back to work as a secretary even before Robert was born. That tells me that maybe both kids are guy heads. Are they both redheads? Kind of, a little bit. Old enough to go to school, we spent our days with my aunt. Okay, we don't know which person is aunt. In the diner where he worked, my dad had no room for experimenting, so he'd exercise his skills at home on his days off. We'd always go shopping and cook as a family on those days, and even though we were hyper kids running around and causing a ruckus, those were some of our family's favorite memories since we were all together. Mom always had the eye for the best vegetables for him to work with, and she did her best to pass that on to us. According to the article, their parents, who are now retired, visit Friday often. They even have a signature dish called the Sistine Apple. Apple pie has always been my mom's favorite, and my dad always had this stupid line he used to make her laugh involving apple pie. Most people realize it's a Sistine Chapel pun and assume that's all there is to it, but it's actually secretly named after them, sort of. Okay, so I think this brother looks older. Yes. Oh, okay. Miracle is, in fact, a cheating cheater. Not surprised by that information. Oh, hello again.
Clark reached out to you. Well, let me give you a short history lesson about the last few months of my life. 3 different people contacted me, claiming that somewhere in their history, they might be Roottrees. First, that young man, the rapper. I ignored that one. He seemed dubious. But then I saw the news. I felt terrible. So I began helping the others. Because my doubts with Felix were so misfounded, I ended up putting too much faith in the second person that approached me. I went to the media prematurely. I admit my mistake there. But the third person who contacted me also had a credible case. Before I could help, the company got to them somehow. The fact that the family silenced them doesn't seem to fill me with hope when it comes to Clark's intentions. But you're making progress based on the leads he gave you. It's really
How does she know?
I'll let you handle it. I've sent you the case I've been working on, and some
Okay.
company records I managed to track down. The records are quite dense, but hopefully they're useful. Good luck.
All right. Before I look at that, let's get Robert on here. And I also want to finish... Let's look up the Sistine Apple. Okay. What about here? I was hoping that it would lead to like a picture of his parents, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So let's put that thought down for now. Photo first. Okay. So these are musician family. Not sure who you are. This photo was given to you by Sam Madsen. A woman named Regina Clementine came to her and claimed that her husband has confessed he thinks he's a Roottrees. Okay, so he's not a cheater. He is the son of a potential cheater. Stuart is the older boy wearing a vest. The woman in the photo is Mary Beth Clementine, a singer who may have had an affair with Miracle Roottrees. Oh. Mary Beth Clement. Okay, so Regina Clementine is not in the picture. This is her mom. So we are on this track. So this could be Regina. And it looks like she's a singer. No? Musician? Don't know the spouse's name, but there's... His ways? And then we have two kids. He looks older. He looks younger. Okay, let's go back here. A woman named Regina Clementine came to her. Okay, so Regina would be one of these two. I'm gonna put her down here. Well, if she's married, then Clementine wouldn't be their name because their dad would have the name, a different name. If this is Regina Clementine, then we have her full history down. So I'm actually gonna just stick this as unknown for now. Oh, and they split up, but they're still together. Okay. Came to her husband and claimed that her husband has confessed he thinks he's a Roottrees. Okay, so this is Regina Clementine. So she thinks her husband is a Roottrees. Stuart is the older boy wearing a vest. The woman in the photo is Mary Beth Clementine, a singer who may have had an affair with Miracle Roottrees. Oh, wait. This is Mary Beth. So his name was Clementine then. We don't know what her maiden name is. So their last names... Stuart is the older boy wearing a dress. But we don't have a name for the younger boy. We just know that his last name would be Clementine. And his name is Stuart. Oh, wait. You're the one who has kids, though. Why would she know his name and not... But, I mean, he clearly looks like the younger kid. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But important information, nonetheless. From 6piecesprodigy.us to Genealogy Genie. This is all the information I have about Regina Clementine née Salazar. Okay, so we have her name. Oh, wait. Mary Beth. Wait, did you say Regina or Regina Salazar? Okay. And his last name is Clementine. And don't know about their kid. Okay, from New Orleans, Louisiana, and her husband, Stuart Clementine. Oh, wait, shoot. So this is Regina. I just assumed that it would be like a more recent one. Regina Salazar, and then this is, oh, we don't know his occupation. Okay, let me reset these. I mean, this would still be Clementine. And this would still be well, actually, yeah, they would still be Clementines. Okay, so we're over here because again, I think he looks older, and now it makes sense like why I wasn't sure why she would know his name and not someone else's. She wrote me about a month ago. Apparently, the Roottrees lawyers went after her since then. By the time I received her letter and called her, she told me she couldn't cooperate anymore. Her husband, who is a police officer, gross. And never knew his father, told her he thought he might be a Roottrees, but he's estranged from his family and didn't want to pursue it because he had no proof. She wrote to me behind his back. Normally, I wouldn't be so sure, but she had some pretty credible facts. Some of it I've been able to confirm. Stuart's mother was Mary Beth Clementine. She was pretty well known in the 30s to 50s, a singer who went on tour to a lot of churches. You can look her up online, and she was a pretty big proponent of adoption. I know for a fact that she came to Butler County a few times. I remember her from when I was younger, and Regina said that Stuart told her that they always seem to spend a lot of time at the Miracle Church. She sent me a photo to prove that she's who she says she is. I've attached it to this email. Unwrapping America is out now. Please consider saving a tree and not printing this email. Okay, just some funny flavor text. Okay, so yeah, she was a musician. And now we need to make a new page for Miracle. I wonder why she was a pretty big proponent of adoption. And she was also in the Butler County a few times, so that just tells us to look her up in the periodical. Okay, so Mary Beth Clementine. Let's do just that. Butler County Times. Mary Beth Clementine came to Butler County a few times and played religious hymns at the Miracle Congregation's church. She's mentioned 2 times, so the first visit from 1949 was significantly more substantial. Miracle Congregation welcomes Mary Beth Clementine with open arms. The article mentions that the church's leader was moved when he heard Mary Beth's recording of one of his favorite hymns, His Eye is on the Sparrow, and reached out to her personally. His Eyes on the Sparrow holds a very special meaning to me. As you know, I've had a very difficult upbringing, and it's no secret that my own eyes have always been a source of struggle. The song is about overcoming sadness and hardship through Jesus. If God can find a way to watch over every sparrow, he can certainly watch over those made in his image. My family's fortune does me no good as a man of the Lord. It's much better spent spreading his word, and I've felt a kinship with Mary Beth ever since I heard her voice. When I learned her personal story, I knew I had to help her in whatever way I could. The Bible is full of adoptions from Moses to Esther. Spending your life taking care of those helpless to help themselves is incredibly noble. She and her son are welcome to stay in our guest house. The second visit was a few years later in 1953. The article mentions that her first visit was a massive success, and at the insistence of Miracle's congregation, she's returned for an encore performance. It also mentions that the unusual circumstances of her second son's adoption have prevented her from touring recently, but doesn't clarify. Yeah. Okay, is there anything? I don't know why she would be in any of these music things, but let's look up Mary Beth Clementine. A singer most popular in the years between 1942 and 1959. She traveled around the country performing at churches. Her repertoire was a mixture of religious and popular songs, and although she recorded few records, they seemed lost to time. The only one you find mention of was her cover of He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, released under the label New Edison. One thing Mary Beth was known for was her adoptions. She's listed on many sites that mention adoption and the history of adoption. She adopted 2 children in the late 40s, Stuart and Mark. She also spoke as an advocate for the benefits of adoption in front of the United States Congress in 1949, who were convening to debate and discuss the then recent first adoption of an African American child to a white family in the United States. She was specifically there to detail her experience going through the system to adopt Stuart. Her other son was adopted later, and according to a single line on one adoption site, under unusual circumstances. In 1959, it surfaced that Mary Beth had been twice divorced, both times to her manager, Sterling. This ended her career with the religious audience she had been catering to, and while she performed occasionally since then, she mostly faded into obscurity. Mary Beth passed away in 1994 at the age of 76 of a stroke. Okay. Oh wait, that's hyphenated. New Edison was a small record label based in Los Angeles that existed for a few years in the 40s. It raced to release cover records of songs that were gaining in popularity. According to a website about the history of recorded sound, it was named after its founder, Sterling Edison. Its biggest claim to fame is being sued by the estate of Thomas Edison, Edison Records versus Edsel. You also find a few references to New Edison and Mary Beth Clementine on sites about old records. One collector says that the Holy Grail is a re-release of the old Rugged Cross, and says that the first edition was originally published before she legally changed her name. Another site says that the police had to be called to New Edison Records after its owner, Sterling Edison, got in a physical altercation in public, leading to a divorce. There are no cited sources or evidence, and the site's content seems user-submitted. There's an email address at the bottom and the phrase, "Send me your stories about old Hollywood," and I'll add them to the page. Okay. So let's look up, let's see, we're going to finish this. So his last name is actually Edison. Her last name, we're going to list as Clementine. But they seem to be using the last name Clementine. Okay, this takes us to the same thing. The Old Rugged Cross is a popular hymn that has been covered by many, many artists online. You won't find much information about it online. Okay, what about... I forget what these are. Tabloid and defunct magazine that contained info. I don't know. Let's try it. What was it called again? The Old Rugged Cross. Mary Beth Clementine released the old rugged cross for a new Edison, and it was advertised quite a few times. When it was first reviewed by the magazine, however, it listed the artist as Mary Beth Quaker. Okay, so she did have a different last name. But they go by Clementine. His last name was Edison. Everything's a mess. I think maybe that's all I'm supposed to find with this, unless I can just search Mary Beth Clementine. Was reviewed and advertised many times in Modern Music Monthly, but the most popular recording was the release of her cover of He's Got the Whole World in His Hands. A very positive review of her cover. It's not of much use to your investigation. Okay. Back to Spider Search. Let's try... Oops. Edison Records is one of the first record labels named after Thomas Edison. The history of the company seems very unimportant except for potentially a lawsuit filed in 1949. A website about lawsuits mentions this as a fun case because the name of the lawsuit was actually the biggest problem for the person being sued. A record producer who called himself Edison was immediately outed as not actually being named Edison. Edsel was a German last name, and at the time of the founding of the company, the US was at war with Germany. The company's founder immediately settled to try to get the case to go away, but the damage was done. Called himself Edison. So his last name is actually Edsel. Tricky, tricky. Old Hollywood. What if I look up Sterling Edison here? The owner who went by and said he'd likely created a new record company. There's no evidence anywhere that he did, and that was the last mention of him. Seems that whatever he got up to after he was sued by Edison Records, that he no longer seemed newsworthy. Mary Beth Quaker. Am I spelling this right? Because that looks like Quacker. There's no C. Okay. Okay, what if I look it up on Spider Search? Mary... All right, let's try looking up Mark Clementine. Okay. Crocodile Clementine is listed on a website titled The Infamy List. It's a massive list of criminals who are known for odd crimes. What? Although Mark's nickname would imply he hails from Florida, a lot of others on the list come from there, or Australia. Mark is listed as being from Los Angeles. He has a pretty big entry. He seems like a real piece of work. There's a very small note about him being the basket baby of 1950, but most everything else comes from his adulthood. Oh, hold on. That was the unusual circumstances, I'm guessing. He lost his job in 1975 as a pilot for a regional airline after he tried to board the wrong airplane's plane. He was drunk. He was charged with trespassing and assault. In 1982, he was arrested for transporting smuggled animals over the Canadian and Mexican borders for an illegal reptile supplier in Los Angeles. He was apparently quite successful for the first 4 years, but was caught when he had to make an emergency landing in Portland after he was bitten on the foot by a crocodile, hence the nickname. Apparently, the Portland Telegraph is credited as having given him his nickname. His mugshot from this incident has been added to your photos. In 1993, he was released on parole, but his freedom didn't last long. He was arrested in 1994 in San Diego for violating it in an attempt to visit his daughter's graduation. He famously punched the principal, a man named Billy Sims. This incident received national press. Okay, so he has a daughter who seems to still be a student. Oh, I forgot we can't name them like that. I mean, he just seems to be a criminal. Is smuggler in here? Pilot? I guess I'll list him as a pilot. Okay, that worked. And the secondary photo is his mugshot. Okay, so we've locked in Stuart, Mark, Mary Beth, and Robert. Great. Oh, we need to go save the picture. Oh, man. It's Mark Clementine who was arrested. Okay. Oh, boy. All right, let's try looking up. I mean, there's a lot of things here. Let's first start with Billy Sims. Principal of Sandstone Canyon High School, who had his 15 minutes of fame in 1994 when he was punched by Crocodile Clementine at a graduation ceremony. Maybe we'll be able to find her picture. It wasn't the punch that captured the nation's attention, however. Instead, it was Billy Sims' matter-of-fact response to the threat and his comments afterwards, as heard in a now famous audio clip from someone who was recording the ceremony. Billy saw Mark hop onto the graduation stage and said, "Sir, you'll want to sit down or we'll have a problem." At that point, Crocodile reportedly sucker punched him in the face. Billy, apparently only slightly dazed, said, "All right, sir, I guess we'll have a problem." Clementine tried to throw another punch, but Sims anticipated it and performed a maneuver that spectators described as a wrestling move mixed with a backward somersault, which immediately brought both men to the floor, with Sims straddling Clementine, keeping him neutralized. As security arrived, the recording captured someone asking, "How did you do that?" And Sims' response was famously, "Trust me, I'm as surprised as anyone." Okay, so Sandstone Canyon High School. Not much about it. That does tell us, though, if that was 1994, she's probably not in K-12 anymore. She's probably more likely a college student at this point, if she went to college. Let's try the infamy list. Okay, that just takes us here. Basket Baby of 1950. A few sites about true stories focused on and around religion mentioned that in 1950, a gospel singer named Mary once found herself dealing with a real-life baby Moses situation. Apparently, she was a rather prominent supporter of the concept of adoption, and someone decided to test how much. They left a baby on her doorstep in a basket. According to the site, she adopted him without question and raised him as her own son. Although it wasn't national news, in many circles he became known as the Basket Baby, and he even went on tour with her as he grew up. None of the websites state who the woman or baby were, likely to prevent people from looking into either the people too closely. From context, you know that it's Mary Beth Clementine, who would later be shunned due to her personal life, and her son Mark, who would later be known as Crocodile Clementine. Okay, let's look up the Portland Telegraph. Run-of-the-mill newspaper based out of Portland, Oregon. They have a website with a lot of dry statistics about how many subscribers they have. Website doesn't have useful data, but where is it? This one. Portland Telegraph was the one that provided the nickname Crocodile Clementine and has some details about Crocodile Clementine's first major arrest. He was flying weekly between Los Angeles, Juarez, and Vancouver in a small plane. His flights were very low, literally under the radar. He was only caught because he was bit by a crocodile on the leg and had to call in Mayday because he was losing blood. He tried to tell them that he was a crop duster who somehow cut his leg on a loose piece of metal in the cockpit, but his story seemed very odd, and controllers quickly alerted the police without informing him. When he landed, they were waiting, and he was promptly arrested. Okay. What if we search Robert? Nothing. Okay. Oh, it was Mark Clementine. Just in case there's anything different. No, same article. Okay. I'm not sure how I'm going to get them uncovered. So let's go review our confidential piece of evidence. You were given some partial staff records to cross-reference by Sam Madsen. These records are based on old tax mailing information and only detail the employees that work directly for Roottree or in their corporate office. The many laborers on their farm and in their factories are not listed. You're not sure how helpful it would be except for cross-referencing Guy's secretaries and visits overseas. Spider searching people just because they're listed in these books will likely be very time-consuming and a waste of your time. Okay, so I'm gonna just make a list called company records. That way I won't just, save everything. Okay, we know who Zach Morden and Ernest Madsen are. Edward Roottree, Lloyd Carpenter, Carl Monroe, Elizabeth Cavendish. Okay, hold on. Did we have an Elizabeth? We had a Joanna Fellows. Christine. Yeah, so this one. Oh, hold on. Cravensworth. This is Christine. I don't know why I'm thinking that. Let's just try looking up Elizabeth Cravensworth. Was that with... Yes. Okay. Nothing. What about in... Product management. Okay, so these are our secretaries. Beth Knox. Okay, we have a Christine. Juliet McCullen. Joanna Robertson. This is when Zach is president. So this is before we even get to Guy Hudson. Elizabeth Farrow, Thomas Green, Gleason Stewart Todd. Okay. So now it's Guy Hudson. Eli Roottree is no longer employed by Roottree. Ernest Madsen is now listed under product management. Okay. Christine Farrow was hired. Joanna Robertson is no longer listed among the secretaries, but a Joanna Fellows has been added. Okay, so she was Robertson. And Christine Farrow. Am I spelling that correctly? Yeah, I was. I like the ambient rain. Nice touch. Okay. Joanna Fellows and Beth Knox are no longer employed. Christine Farrow is no longer listed among the secretaries, but a Christine Garland has been hired. And then we have a John Miller and a Gwyneth Madsen. Beth Knox 50-year work anniversary bonus, $50,000. Okay, so Beth Knox is definitely one of these affairs. We have Joanna and Christine. So Beth is the only one not listed here. So let's look up Beth Knox. Okay, hold on. Yeah, Beth Knox started here. So she was there for a while. I'm guessing if we just go in order, this could be... Okay. All right, page 3. Guy Hudson took over. This began a particularly volatile period in the company's staffing. Many travel expenses were listed, and Guy began trying to develop new 5-flavor pieces. Okay, Elizabeth and Lloyd Carpenter are no longer here. Raffertoons is now listed as office staff. Albert Cross and Fred Cross no longer employed. Christine Garland no longer working there. Beatrice Watts and Corinne Schwartz were hired. Juliet McCullen and Doris Mays are no longer employed. Lisa Lewis and Valerie Ewing are hired. I should actually just highlight this whole thing. Elizabeth Farrow is gone. Susan Ford hired under a special category that only existed for a year. That's weird. Office refurbishment, retirement party, Christmas tree bash, New Year's ball, travel expenses. Okay, so we have a few names here. Beatrice Watts. Nothing. Nothing. And Corinne Schwartz. Okay. Resides in Pennsylvania, though it appears she lived beyond the Butler County limits. After she was named in a national tabloid, people have come to her place of work and have accused her of being a nonomom. The article explains that it's impossible for her to be a nonomom because her only child is still in middle school. Unless her son's gestation period was approximately 10 years, doesn't it appear like Corinne could have been involved in any potential affairs on your tree? Okay. Corinne Schwartz comes up in a few articles trying to track down a nonomom and harassing her for it. She recently had to take a leave of absence because people showed up at the car dealership where she works. She's begging people to stop the accusations so that she can get back to living a normal life. In every article you find the journalists involved have independently verified she is not a nonomom. What was a nonomom again? Second high-profile case. Oh, okay. This was the person who claimed to be a Roottree. She'd slept with Guy Hudson and that her daughter was a Roottrees. It came during the height of Roottreemania and began with a brief TV interview. Her accusation even included many of the same details as his mother's story. It included her job and the time period. Okay, so one of these secretaries is for sure not relevant, and apparently neither is was it Corinne that we just looked up? Could not be a Roottrees due to a DNA test. Felt pressure to put out a statement, Though it was scientifically proven that Jane Doe Roottree is not a Roottree, that doesn't mean that her mother and Guy Hudson were not involved in an affair. She had every right to make her claim, as it has been verified that her stories about Guy Hudson were not exaggerations. Please leave their family alone. Secret Roottrees. Okay, nothing there. Alright, so maybe it's premature to list Beth here. But I don't know, the fact that she got paid a lot of money is weird, right? Juliet McCullen and Doris Mays. And Doris... Nothing. Okay, Lisa Lewis and Valerie Ewing. Okay, let's keep going. The volatility continued. Many new employees didn't stick around very long. Following changes were recorded. Terry O'Connor, Susan Ford moved to office staff. Morrison hired and then fired. Okay, here's the secretaries for this year, or this branch of years. Gordon Schwartz and Beatrice Watts no longer employed. Linda Lewis and Angela Ingram were hired. And Angela Ingram. Okay, nothing there. And then they were fired. And then Catherine Garrett was hired. Catherine. Yeah, I spelled that correctly. What about Susan Ford? Because that was weird. Nothing. Oh my goodness. Grandorf Dove donation. The Grandorf School for the Deaf, formerly Grandorf Dove, is located about an hour where the Roottrees office used to be in Butler County, but it serves much that part of Pennsylvania and nearby Ohio. According to their website, it was formerly named Grandorf Dove, because Grandorf was the last name of the founder and Dove is the Danish word for deaf. The founder had issues with government translators, leading to an odd transcription issue. In 1990, it was renamed to better represent the school's purpose and to correct the embarrassing lack of effort and awareness demonstrated by the government officials in those early days. The staff is listed on the website. You can scan through all the biographies and find that the principal, Ms. Ford, is fluent in 5 languages. She's also been working for the school for 15 years. Ms. Ford's bio also mentions she's not deaf herself, but rather learned sign language to communicate with the deaf. It mentions that she was responsible for securing funding for the Hudson Wing. Yeah. Grandorf Dove was a school for the deaf near Butler and was regularly listed in articles with other local schools. Butler County Times archives includes what seems like an endless list of snow cancellations, extracurricular activities, and weekend events that began over 70 years ago and stretched until the last mention in 1990. Amongst the avalanche of useless information, you almost miraculously discover one useful article. Grandorf Dove was at the center of a crime article from 1982. It seems that someone defaced the school and vehicles outside the brand new Hudson wing of the school. There were multiple broken windows, and one of the teacher's cars was painted with profanities and accusations of infidelity. What do you know? A few weeks later, a follow-up article provides more details. There was one arrest, Thomas Hughes, who was coincidentally a former student at the school. Apparently, the destruction came weeks after he married the school's newest teacher, Mrs. Hughes. She was not a teacher when he went. He graduated a few years earlier. According to the reporter's investigation into the police reports, trials, and restraining orders, Mr. Hughes was convinced that he was not the father of Mrs. Hughes' current pregnancy. He was released on bail, and the schools agreed not to press criminal charges after an agreement was made to pay for damages and for the couple to begin divorce proceedings. It seems Thomas Hughes, Mrs. Hughes, and the Hudson Wing have all avoided further appearances in the Butler County Times. Scandalous. Okay, so we have two. I'm gonna guess it's her. What was her name again? Susan Ford, and she's a teacher. What? Or interpreter? Why isn't teacher here? Well, what was her job for? It was interpreter, right? Special services interpreter. And his name was Thomas Hughes. We don't have a picture of him. Okay, that leads to the same article. Working at the school for over 50... Oh, she's a principal. Wait, what's that? Yeah, it is Susan. Susan Hughes. Thomas Hughes. Okay, and then that leads here. Former student. So we don't know what he currently does. I mean, we don't need to list what he currently does, but there's supposed to be a picture of him. Okay, one more in the confidential. Guy Hudson died in May 1982, so the first few months of that year continued along the same pattern as they had been. Things quickly changed when Ernie took over. Most of the extraneous expenses ended, and all the secretaries most handpicked by Guy were let go. Sam Madsen left Roottrees in 1984, so this is the last set of books you have access to. Okay, so Susan Ford no longer employed. Douglas Rosenberg rehired. Secretaries, here's our notes. Angela Ingram, Linda Lewis, and Catherine Garrett no longer employed. No secretaries are directly employed by Roottrees. Roottrees instead uses a temp agency called Work Time Temp. I don't know, let's just check it out. Work Time Temp. Company with many offices all over the United States. Roottrees Company is listed on their site as one of the companies they do business with, though it's far from the only one you recognize. As far as you can tell, there's no connection. Okay. Good to know. Canceled. Fred Gleason, work bonus. Root clothing reimbursement to Carl Roottrees. There's still quite a few secretary options in here. Still missing a lot of pictures. Was there in the list? I mean, probably not, but just in case. Elizabeth Cravensworth? I don't know if... I mean, maybe. And she was listed as office staff. That's not specific enough. Guardian or adoption. Wow, this goes down such a long way. Okay. We still have some stuff in here. Yeah, 1 or 2 weeks after that before she quit. Oh, his mother then moved to Portland. Okay, so Joanna Robertson. Let's look her up in Portland's periodical. Dang it. What about Fellows? Joanna Fellows was mentioned briefly a few times around the time of her death. The first time was about the discovery of her body. The second time had some other details about the night she disappeared. It reiterates some things that were mentioned in the Newstime article about her son. She was a single mother who worked at a video rental store. She died of a drug overdose after stealing the cash register. The rest of the details seem unimportant. Why isn't she locked in? Riley is. David is. Maybe it's just because I needed that last name. I wonder if it was Carl Roottrees who had a secret. As far as you can tell, Carl and Brenda never had any marital issues. You do come across an article about a Kristen Valdez who claims to have been Carl's high school sweetheart before Brenda. She does not make any claim about having had a child with him. She just appeared to be paid to talk about his early life. Most of it is boring. She says that they met when she was sent to a private school near her hometown and broke up when he graduated from Butler County. Okay. Kristen. Nothing. Okay. Have I already... I think I already tried searching for Elias. Amongst all his columns, the farm is shut down seemingly indefinitely. Website says check back later, but has no date listed. Quotes from Bess Williams' book appear to have been taken down. This rise in support was in turn followed by pickets from gay rights activists when some particularly inflammatory organizations made their pilgrimages. And then the rest of this is the same. Okay. I mean, the whole page is the same. It's just, I don't know. Okay. Did I already search Jane Joe Roottree? Okay, this just leads to the anonymom stuff. Anonymom's affair does not appear on your updated tree. Okay. But figuring out which of the secretaries is anonymom could be relevant information. Because there is something in here that we have not knocked off yet. And there's still... What about the samosa cone? I haven't looked this up. Okay. James credits his love of food. His kids hated vegetables. My dad's a great storyteller. I feel like this should be searchable somewhere. I mean, it's in Boston, so it's not gonna be there. Yeah, that was never gonna go anywhere. And it's not in the periodical, right? The chef's signature. That just went to like a short thing. And then the samosa cone. Yeah, and then Friday itself doesn't lead to anything. Oops. Wait, why? Is that not how you spell it? Friday. Okay, yeah. And then here. I don't know why I decided to spell it that way. Yeah, all of that just leads in circles. Okay, then they have the company records. This one has the most things attached to it. Susan Ford, we already kind of figured out her general place. We have not been able to find her. What is Pikachu again? Recent supermarket tabloid latches under pop culture. Absolutely not. Business Watch wouldn't make sense either. Yeah, this is the only one that would make sense, but she's not in here. And she's mentioned in here as Mrs. Hughes. Hudson Wing have all avoided further appearance in the Butler County Times. What if I just search for the Hudson Wing in the spider? Okay, the Hudson Wing was an expansion to Grandorf Dove, now Grandorf School for the Deaf. First built... It's a separate, much smaller building, half a block from the main campus, and operates as a smaller independent school that offers free ASL courses for the family members, friends, and caretakers of deaf children. According to their history site, they got their name after the president of the Roottrees Company generously donated $250,000 toward the construction of the building. There's also a very vague history section that you can see somewhat fill in with details from the other information you've seen about the school. It mentions that the donation came at the insistence of an employee of Roottrees at the time. It mentions that she learned ASL from the main school before the Hudson Wing even existed to surprise her future husband, who was deaf. After realizing how useful a service like this could be to non-deaf people that wish to better serve those with hearing issues, she convinced Roottrees management to invest in the school. The Hudson Wing opened and she became the first teacher at the new campus. At first, it only operated on weekends, but since then, it has added afternoon classes on some weekdays. Okay. And this just leads here. There we go. Grandorf School for the Deaf has made has made a few odd appearances here and there in Butler County Times since 1990. It is not too many that you can't look at them all. And so after scrolling through a few pages, you manage to find something incredibly useful in an article that isn't even focused on the school itself. Local students provide key evidence in scientific study. The article from March of this year mentions that the Ford sisters, who attended public school in Butler County, are one of only a handful of identical twins in the world who suffer from two different genetic issues. One, that's not where this should go. Let me delete this, go to Guy Hudson's page. Okay, the Ford sisters. One of them has asthma and the other has a deadly allergy to peanuts. Their mother, a Miss Susie Ford, who is principal at the nearby Grandorf School for the Deaf, was originally contacted by researchers looking to identify if there were any sets of twins where one was born deaf and the other was not. While she didn't have any twins attending her school, she asked if her daughters Melissa and Heather could be useful, and it turns out they were. They couldn't be more useful. My youngest, we will all call her that even though it's only by about 15 minutes, is shy, but essentially hasn't stopped running from the moment she learned to scamper. Asthma has kept her sister off the soccer field, but she's the definition of extrovert and is even performing in a local production of Is There Life After High School later this year. The article includes pictures of the girls added to your evidence. Perfect. Okay, so this is what we're going to end with today. This photo accompanied an article about a scientific study in the Butler County Times. The Ford twins were used as part of a nationwide study of how allergies and other diseases affect twins differently. The twin on the left is holding an inhaler, and the twin on the right is holding an EpiPen. Okay, and according to this, Melissa and Heather, my youngest, is shy, scamper. Asthma has kept the other sister. Okay, so she has twin. Oh, wait, not you. Oh, wait. Yeah, it has to be you. So you were the final affair. Okay, so let's clear all of this. So this is Susan Ford. This was the last affair that he had. And her spouse was Thomas Hughes. She is a principal. And her daughters, inhaler and an EpiPen. Melissa and Heather. I'm guessing it's Hughes. Right? Was she listed as Hughes? Well, she was listed as Ford here, so it's possible her daughters are going by Ford. I have no idea. cast list mentions some names, including Heatherford. Okay, so that does confirm at least that the name is Heatherford. Asma has kept her sister off the soccer field, but she's the definition of an extrovert and is performing in the local... Okay, so... Actually, that was the switch. So it's Heather, and you are... Melissa. Because you're the one holding the inhaler? Wait. Yeah, Asma is kept, but she's the definition of extrovert and is performing in the production. And then it said Heatherford is in the cast list. Yeah, so that's all correct now. Anything else? Maybe let's try searching this. Try doing it again here. Or, well, I think this is just this title of the article that we just found. Okay, let's try looking this up online. Is Her Life After High School is a musical. It's quite obscure, only appearing on Broadway for 17 performances. Nowadays, it's mostly performed by smaller theater troupes, including high school drama clubs. If you couldn't tell by now, a game designer by the name of Jeremy Johnson was in musical theater for all 4 years of high school. There's one song from it that it has somewhat surpassed the popularity of the rest of the musical, called The Kid Inside. If you'd like to listen to it, I recommend Barry Manilow's version. If you've heard the song before, it's likely that cover. The entire musical deals entirely with the traumas and nostalgia that society collectively shares about their formative years, which feels appropriately thematic for this game. I've always thought of it as somewhat ironic that they have high school theater clubs perform it, though. Anyway, the key word in that Butler County Times article was local. Yeah, but it's fun to look things up. Okay, I'm probably going to go ahead and stop here. We filled in quite a bit. Mostly we need pictures of some of these adults, and we have nothing over here except a possible name. We figured out the bookends. We know who his last affair was with and his first affair. And this is also locked in the Christine Farrow. But these identities are a little hazier. Oh, and I can clear this too. This is not Thomas Hughes. And I have no idea yet who the most recent affair is. Apparently, from what we just read, it was not Carl Roottree. It could still potentially be James. It could be Miracle. Who else is in here? Who's on the younger side? I guess it could be any of these. It could be Bonnie. It could be Gwendolyn. This is unlikely since he's passed. I guess it could be Gwyneth Morden. It would suck if it's you again. That would really suck, actually. It could be one of them too. He's not married, so he wouldn't be a cheater, but I mean, he could be, for all we know. Poor Christina baby. Okay, so this is where we're at right now. Made some pretty good progress, but I'm feeling a little mentally tapped out. So next time we will see where we can pick up from here. Bye.